Welcome to OhSister, where I unpack my Mormon sister missionary journals 10 years later. We're talking about money today, but before I jump into the money, I want to remind you of the big emotional impact behind a missionary being a missionary and going on a mission. So let's look at music, right? Once again, look at music. A lot of the songs that I learned and sang every week in primary growing up were about missionaries and going on missions, like I Want to Be a Missionary Now, and I Hope They Call Me on a Mission. There are also a lot of congregational hymns that we sang regularly too. Called to Serve comes to mind, and there are many others, but let's review one of the favorite showstoppers. It's the crowd favorite. It's Armies of Helaman, or the official title is We'll Bring the World His Truth. So this is another Janice Cap Perry classic from 1983. It is super popular to do as a youth medley with another song, but let's stick with this original, this one song for today. Now, I'll go ahead and read verse 1 and the chorus. So it says, "We have been born as Nephi of old to goodly parents who love the Lord. We have been taught, and we understand that we must do as the Lord commands. We are as the army of Helaman. We have been taught in our youth, and we will be the Lord's missionaries to bring the world his truth." Yeah, so a lot of Book of Mormon references there, a lot of, kids singing this as we, feeling the group power, feeling very solid in children singing that they've been taught that they must be obedient and they're going to go be the Lord's missionaries when they grow up. This is what I was singing. I wasn't even really expecting that I would go on a mission. At the time, I was like, it would be cool to go on a mission. I knew that all the boys would go on missions. But I did end up going, and, I can't help but wonder if some of the music, helped me have a positive feeling around the idea of going on a mission, Pretty sure it did. But, so, yeah, big emotional stuff behind going on missions and your children going on missions, family members going on missions. But let's talk about the money now. So for those who don't know, if you go on an LDS mission, you are not paid for your labor or time. It's called being called to serve. And it's actually not even free. It's not like, okay, you just show up and the organization is benefiting from all of your 24/7 labor, so they're giving you accommodations, right? You, as a missionary, pay for the privilege of serving God's one true church. And since it's been 10 years, I was a little fuzzy about the exact numbers, but as luck would have it, there's a missionary focus blog from 2015, and I've looked at their stuff already for this podcast, and they still have a page up that talks about the specific numbers about missionary costs from 2015. So let's jump to that. So this is from August 27th, 2015. So just the same timeline as I'm writing about in my journal right now. So here's what the LDS bloggers were saying about financing your mission. Quote, "Missionaries of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are volunteers and pay their own expenses. The responsibility to provide financial support for a missionary lies first with the individual and second with the missionary's family. Missionaries and their families should make appropriate sacrifices to provide financial support for a mission, and they will be richly blessed in turn." So yeah, most people, at least in the American context I know of, US, most people, if they're seniors, juniors in high school, and they're getting close to graduating, they're usually like saving up to go to college or whatever they're doing next, right? But if you're an LDS kid, you're also saving for a mission. So there's like double pressure in high school. I wasn't planning on going right out of high school. But there were lots of young men that I knew who were, so they were all trying to work and save as much as they could so that they could go on missions and then go to college. And then also, there are actually some people who are like engaged or like close to engaged. So they're finishing up like their high school years and trying to save enough money to go on a mission, come back from their mission, get married, and start having kids while they're like starting to go to college. Which I know that's a bit of an extreme example, but it's pretty common. It's common enough. I had one of my later mission companions, she was engaged, and she was engaged, she went home, and her fiance was on his mission at the same time. They both got home, they got married, started having kids, and it was just this whole big, very front-loaded, lots of financial things, right? So yeah, it can be a big financial commitment. And the church, it used to be that it was like, depending on where you go, it would cost like way less or way more. So let's read about the Missionary Support Fund. And this blog has a good description of that, so I'll go ahead and read that. They say, many years ago, the church equalized the contribution required by missionaries or their families to pay for expenses, regardless of where these missionaries are called to serve. Young missionaries each pay the same monthly cost, and then, depending on where they serve, they are allotted a monthly allowance according to their needs. The missionaries and/or their family donate the amount, currently $500 a month in the United States, to their ward mission fund, paying it in the same way members pay tithing, via the paper envelope or the church donation website. For each missionary from a ward who is serving a mission, the bishop ensures that the monthly contribution is made to the ward mission fund. Usually, the missionary's family makes the monthly contribution, though paying the full amount for the 2 years or 18 months is a perfectly fine option as well. So let's pause here for some math. So my mission at 18 months with $500 a month, thanks to this blog, I know the exact number. It was $9,000 total for my parents, which is actually more than what my year of tuition at BYU was at the time. And while I did have a scholarship at BYU, I had a full tuition scholarship because I was very insistent about making sure that happened. So my parents' expenses actually went way up when I went on a mission. And at least in like my own situation, I had hardly any money saved up left from my high school job after my freshman year at BYU. Like I don't know, I can't remember like if I even had any money left after that first year. So basically my parents had to pay for my whole mission. Yeah. Let's keep going. Okay, so they say, the church's online donation website makes it easy for missionaries and their family and friends to make the actual banking transaction to donate to a missionary or make the monthly payment. The website also lets members all over the world donate to any missionary's ward missionary fund, and thus help cover the cost to support missionaries. So yeah, it's good to have this big overall missionary fund, I think, because like my dad went to Japan in the 80s, and I can imagine that was a little bit more expensive than if he had just gone to North Dakota. I don't know if he was able to just work a lot in high school and save up the money for that to pay for himself, or like his parents had a lot of kids and they were all going on missions, and I don't know how they would have been able to pay for all of that. So I wonder if like the ward members would have helped, or if it was just up to each of my dad and his siblings to pay for their own missions. I should probably ask, but before, people have been going on LDS church missions for a long time, and before like the 90s, I think the Missionary Support Fund was put together. It could be a even bigger financial burden on your family and yourself, depending on where you got called. So in a way, it's good that they kind of equalized the financial burden. Although now I'm like, they really shouldn't be making people pay for this. They're the wealthiest church in the world. They now have more money than the Catholic Church. So they can afford to pay for at least the living expenses of their free proselyting labor. Not to mention, I think that missionaries should get paid, but that's probably never gonna happen. But yeah, that's kind of the thing there. And okay, so let me explain how the fund kind of worked logistically for me as a missionary. So I remember each missionary, we got access to like a debit card that was linked to our own little MSF bank account thing. We called it MSF Missionary Support Fund. And that would refill monthly. So I know every area of the world had like different prices for how much food costs, and cost of living is different areas, right? So depending on what mission you're in, you get a different dollar amount every month. So sometimes you're paying $500 a month, but you are serving in like New York City, so maybe you get more than $500 a month in your account just because you have to pay for food, right? Or you might be paying $500 a month and you go somewhere where the food is way cheaper, so you only get like $50 a month. They kind of do it depending on the area, but I remember having something more like, it's like $100 to $200, I think we had, maybe $300, but I don't think we had $300, but I can't quite remember. I do remember we would call the bank account number on our flip phones. In 2015, there were smartphones at the time, but we were one of the, like, right before they transitioned to having missionaries use like smartphones. So we had flip phones. We would call in, type in our account number, and wait to hear the number of what our balance was, because we couldn't log into an account to see how much money we had. We just had to call in. Kind of funny little memory. So now I want to jump to the White Handbook and talk more about how we were supposed to use these funds and what we were not supposed to use the funds for. So on page 43, and under the section for finances, the White Handbook rules says, "The funds you receive from the mission are sacred. They represent sacrifices by you, your family, and others. Budget your money. Be thrifty and wise in how you spend it. Use funds from the mission for rent," and then I had that crossed out in mine because we didn't pay rent. Groceries, personal grooming items, laundry, cleaning supplies, haircuts, postage for weekly letters to family, fast offerings, and transportation. And I also crossed out transportation as well. And then it says, limit how often you eat at restaurants, including fast food restaurants. Any funds remaining after these expenses should be returned to the mission. Do not save money received from the mission from month to month to purchase personal items such as clothing, cameras, or souvenirs. Use funds from home for other necessary expenses, such as replacing necessary clothing, bicycle purchase and repairs, approved telephone calls home, and medical expenses not paid for by the mission. For example, medical care for pre-existing conditions, co-payments, and normal eye or dental care. keep other expenses to a minimum, and pay for them with funds from home, including expenses for film and film developing, souvenirs, gifts, traffic and parking fines, and any damages that you cause to apartments or vehicles by abuse or failure to maintain them properly. Okay, so that's kind of interesting, right? So we, in our mission, the senior missionaries at the office had, I think that they used some of our, like, missionary monthly monthly allotment was, like, taken from our little accounts or something and put in a big mission account somehow, and they used that to coordinate paying for all of everyone's, like, rents and, like, the car stuff, you know, because depending on the area you were in, you know, rent would be more than what was in your monthly little thing for food, right? So that was taken care of by the mission home. But like everything else, we needed to use the money that we got at the first of the month. We had to use that for everything else. So it was really nice when we lived with people who let us use their laundry, or if we were in an area where our apartment didn't have laundry stuff, that sometimes the members would do our laundry for us, just because it could be so expensive to do laundry at a laundromat compared to like a missionary's monthly budget. So yeah, I remember it was pretty hard to make my money last all month, partially because I was still not super good at budgeting, and we didn't have a lot of like time to sit and figure it out. You know, there was always like this problem of not really having enough time to sit and get stuff all together. But also it's like, you know, it's easier to buy for 2 people groceries than 1 person, but it can be tricky to share groceries between the 2 of you. So often we would just buy our own food and like maybe share milk, take turns, but you know, it's like food will go bad and maybe you don't both like the same things. So we had to have our money last for all of our food. Sisters also had to buy makeup. I tried to still wear like sunscreen and some like Neutrogena retinol cream. And then, you know, period products, etc. That was all already hard to... I often wasn't buying enough food. And then I also really liked to buy cards and like stuff to send home letters and postage. Sometimes we had to buy cleaning products or like laundry stuff, and so that would make the grocery bill go up. We tried not to eat out because we didn't have money for it, but sometimes that was literally the only fun thing we could do. So we would like, let's just go somewhere cheap and like get $1 ice cream, you know, and then of course we're asked to pay fast offerings. Ooh, I think I'm gonna talk about that more in a second, but just, yes, we were expected to pay fast offerings. And I'll talk about this more in a second too, but yes, we were not supposed to save our money, like save up money and like take it home or use it to buy stuff, you know. Anything we were supposed to be super frugal, right? And then if we were going to buy other stuff, like memory stuff or like vehicle damage we had to pay for. Yeah, I know that there were accidents, there were car wrecks from missionaries in my mission. I'm not sure. I don't think typically they actually made missionaries like pay for wrecks, but like maybe if I think if missionaries were like not taking care of their car, the car would probably just be taken away, but I don't know, maybe there were missionaries who had to pay for it. I'm not sure. Never happened to me. Oh yeah, I'm gonna keep reading in the White Handbook the section about tithing and fast offerings. So this is page 45 in the White Handbook. It says, "You are not expected to pay tithing on funds you receive from your mission. You should pay tithing through your home ward on any other income, and contribute fast offerings each fast Sunday in the ward where you serve." So yeah, fortunately they do clarify that we're not expected to pay tithing on these funds that we're getting, because it's literally money that we've already paid tithing on and then are giving to the church to give back to us in some sort of way to like pay for some of our expenses. But I do think, it doesn't say you are not expected to pay tithing on your funds, but that doesn't mean that there aren't missionaries who did. I think there are missionaries who do pay tithing on the funds. Just that would be way less common, but there are some people who are in the more extreme, and they would read that as, yes, I need to pay tithing, even if I'm not expected to. And we were also expected to contribute fast offerings. I can't remember much about that. I know we never really had cash, so we must have just done it online. I don't remember that, but it's pretty rough to have such a small amount of money budgeted for food, and then we have to pay a sizable chunk of that as a fast offering. Now, of course, this is all stuff from like my mission. So I was curious what the church says now about missionary fund stuff. So I searched for the church's current missionary finance guidelines, and it was not really the stuff that I expected to find, but it was really interesting. So, and I think a little kind of telling of the priority. So I thought that this would talk more about, I don't know, like the nuts and bolts of it and the kind of the stuff I've already read, but maybe it's just this section of their website, but for whatever reason, the focus was kind of on a different angle. So they start by just talking about like the importance that financial sacrifice is part of missionary service. And then they talk about, they have this list of general guidelines. And this is like one of the first things that they're emphasizing on this page. So let me read it and see, you can, I'm curious what you think, but I guess you can't really tell me, but I am curious. So here's what it says. Stake presidents and bishops inform missionaries and others who contribute to the Ward Missionary Fund that these contributions, including those that are prepaid, cannot be refunded. This is true even if a missionary returns home before the expected return date for any reason. Because contributions cannot be refunded, prepaying the cost of a mission is discouraged. Interesting, right? So yeah, it looks like the information on the blog was a little bit out of date. The blog I was reading for I don't think it's not like an official church thing, but it was like kind of the best information that members could put together. They said that it's okay to pay up front ahead for your mission, but now the church recommends you to not do that because if you come home early, you can't get the money back. So I'm curious how many people this has happened to. Probably a lot of people have paid all the money for their mission and then came home early, perhaps even just after a month or two, and then they're like, okay, well, I'm supposed to go to college, I need all that money, can I have it back, please? And the church is like, nope. And I was really curious about that, and they do have a little bit of legalese included, so I'm going to read that to you as well. I find it fascinating. So here's what they say about the non-refundable thing. It says, When tithes and other offerings are given to the church, they belong to the Lord, to whom they are consecrated. The essence of all such contributions is that they are free will offerings made without reservation of purpose, retention of control, ownership in any form, or expectation of any benefit by the donor other than the Lord's blessings. It is therefore improper to refund contributions given to the church. Doing so would violate the spirit of free will offerings. In some countries, refunding contributions could also cause legal and income tax complications for both the contributor and the church. So yeah, basically, I guess I don't remember all the stuff that I signed before my mission. All the terms of service and things, but I guess when I was signing up for my mission and my parents were, filling out the monthly contribution stuff, there was some sort of legal note that, this is a free will offering. It is not ever going to be refunded. If I got home early or whatever, cannot be refunded. So, it was also interesting that they specifically point out that it could cause tax complications for the church. Okay. Really, that's the reason? That's really the reason why you can't refund me if I go home early? Makes sense, though. Other stuff you should know about missionary funds is that this financing program is not available for senior couples or for unmarried sisters over 40 who are serving. So if you're a single man, you aren't allowed to serve past the age of, in your 20s, I think. But sisters are allowed to serve until you're 39 as a regular missionary, and then once you turn 40, if you're single, you're allowed to still serve in this respect, but you're not part of this sort of equalized payment system. So depending on where you're called, you might pay even more for where you are going. So that's interesting. And of course, in the White Handbook, it talked about how at the end of your mission, that if there's somehow a negative, if there's extra money, what are they going to do with it? So I'll talk about that because the church has specific directions for what to do if somehow there's a negative balance or if there's extra at the end. So if somehow you have a negative balance in your account when your mission is over, they first hound you down, and then it escalates to all of your leaders to pay what is owed, until it goes to the stake president and then to the area authority. And if they still haven't been able to work it out, it says, finally, if all avenues have been pursued and there is little or no chance the commitment amount will be fulfilled, the area controller, with the area presidency approval, may request a one-time adjustment be made to bring outstanding balances to zero. The request is made directly to the GSD, whatever that is. General, I don't know. So I don't even know how this would happen because, when we ran out of money, we just ran out of money. It wasn't a credit card. It was a bank debit account. So I'm not sure if there are some missionaries who have a credit card somehow. I'm not sure. But interesting that they will hound you down to, pay what you can't, take extra money, right? And then, of course, what happens when you do what you're supposed to do, which is you're supposed to try to not use all of your money and have money left over. You're supposed to be completely frugal and not use the money that you paid for on your mission. You're supposed to leave money for the church. So here's what it says about that. If a missionary account has a positive balance at the end of the missionary service, The unit may clear it as follows. There are 3 options. 1. Transfer remaining balance to the Ward Missionary Fund in an undesignated account. 2. Transfer remaining balance to another missionary account in the unit. Or 3. Transfer remaining balance to the stake or to another unit in the same stake. And then, of course, if the ward or stakes funds get too big, they need to be transferred back to the church's administration office. So basically, they have a pretty neat system for getting all the money, from one missionary to the other missionary, to the ward, to the stake, back to the church. So, yeah, members are always donating, not only to, they're not only donating tithing, but they're also donating usually fast offerings that are supposed to help the local ward. And then they're also usually donating to the humanitarian branch. And then they're also donating to the missionary fund. And that's supposed to be for missionaries in the ward. But, like this says, if the missionaries' funds have hit where they need to be filled, and there aren't missionaries in the ward who need the money, then that will go to the stake. And then if the stake has lots of money, well, they're not supposed to have lots of money, so it just kind of goes back to the church as well. So now you know what I talk about when I say my MSF funds in my journal. I've been having a great time working on this project, but it turns out it takes a lot of time every week to keep this up. If you have the desire and the means to support me financially, it really helps a lot. I do have a disclaimer that your donations will not bring eternal salvation for you or anyone else. However, there are links in the description where you can make a one-time donation or sign up to be a monthly patron to support this and my other creative work. All right, let's get back to it. Monday, March 2nd, 2015. Mission Day 143. We spent a few hours at Brenda's house after finishing all of our weekly preparations. As a tradition, I forgot my camera in the car and we made fun foodstuffs. An appetizer of Rice Krispies made with coconut oil, Brenda's garden wild rice soup, and then curry, carrot, lemon zucchini, and rosemary potato fries. I think I liked the curry ones the best. Smiley face. This evening, we got to share with Ruby what I'd shared in my email home. Love and the Spirit. I printed out Galatians 5:22 and helped support Ruby's understanding that the calmness, the understanding, the love she has been able to have toward her sickening mother is a fruit of the Spirit. And as she continues to read scriptures and pray daily, she will grow in strength. Smiley face. Ruby is going to feed us dinner on Thursday, and I wanted to protest, but in her home, of all the homes, I just couldn't. She has taught me so much about letting others serve you. So we humbled ourselves and said yes, and we're bringing dessert. Okay, a couple of things. I don't remember those fries, but they sound pretty good, and I'm glad that I was able to write that I ate Rice Krispies without having to caveat that I was feeling bad about eating sugar or something. That's kind of nice. I want to talk about what I told Ruby. So basically, it's, I understand where this idea came from of, like, where love comes from, but now I'm like, that's totally, like, off. It's off. So, I guess we had talked to Ruby about her mom, and, like, her mom was, like, getting older and sick or whatever. I don't remember this, just context of what I had written down, but I'm pretty sure that feeling like love and calmness and understanding towards like a close family member is just kind of part of being like human, especially like if you have a good relationship with them, right? Um, I certainly don't think that the way for her to feel more love for her mother was for her to spend more time reading scriptures, I think that she probably should just, I don't know, spend more time with her mom or like, I don't know. Yeah. Also, I thought it was interesting that I used the word support. I wrote, we brought this scripture and we helped support her understanding about this topic. And it's like, I guess I was trying to say that she already kind of knew this, so we weren't totally teaching it to her, so I didn't feel like I could write, we taught her this new concept, but I don't know. Kind of weird specific word choice. It strikes me as missionary speak. But let's just keep going. Tuesday, March 3rd, 2015, Mission Day 144. Gwen Alton reminds me a lot of Ray. Gwen is very design conscious. She's very attentive to visitors. She's always analyzing the entire situation. She's very laid back, and she loves coffee. We had an appointment with her this evening at 6:30. We were half an hour late because of bringing Brenda to Brother Congar's lesson. She fed us sloppy joes, and we each mixed our own Italian soda. I had to jump in pretty early to ask her to call me Sister Finlinson, because she called me Ally a couple times, and that was really weird. She understands, though, that we're, quote, on a mission, unquote, smiley face. And then, after dinner, when she stepped out to smoke, Sister Johnson paused her music. She wanted me to sing, so we shared I'm a Child of God, which brought the spirit some. Smiley face. She turned her music back on, a safety blanket, so she can keep distracted after that. But it was still pretty great explaining our list of reasons why she should be LDS. Cool enough, our list of reasons ended up as an outline of principles and doctrines that lead us back to Heavenly Father. I'm going to stick the rough draft in here. It will take time with Gwen, but the difference between her and Eternigators is she wants what she sees. She's just a maximizer and feels like she needs to know everything first. It will definitely help her to feel the spirit. Wow. Okay. I have many thoughts about that, but I actually also did put that list in my journal. So I'm going to read the list of the reasons why Gwen should be LDS instead of the Christian religion she already was. So here's what I wrote. First bullet point, Restored Church of Jesus Christ. That was, the main obvious one. And then the second bullet point has all these other bullet points underneath it. So then fullness of the gospel, and beneath that I wrote, eternal families and the temple, saving ordinances, little children are saved, gospel, the gift of the Holy Ghost, repentance, aka change, family history and work of salvation, priesthood and auxiliaries, scriptures, the Bible, Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price, Christ said so, Word of Wisdom and Modern Revelation. There is a star next to Word of Wisdom, I guess because she smoked. Plan of Salvation, subtopics of eternal life and angels, eternal progression and saved by grace, and then the last one Sister Johnson wrote down, strength of youth. So these are all not the best the most captivating reasons now that I can think of why one should join a church. But kind of funny to see. Also, just that missionary arrogance once again of like seeing someone who's like already like not only like religious but like a Christian lady, and we're like, oh, that's not good enough for us, you have to be in our church, like that's not super cool. But that's just my whole mission, so no, that's nothing new. A few things that seemed really extra standing out to me about this was that she went for a smoking break, and while she was outside, Sister Johnson turned off her music. And that is, I'm pretty sure, you're not supposed to go to other people's houses and touch their stuff. Especially if you're not, like, friends. If you're just, like, guests, Like, she had us over. But then especially, I wrote down, she turned her music back on, and I wrote that it's a safety blanket so she can keep distracted, because we were instructed to make sure that people turned off music and TV and distractions and stuff so they would pay attention to us and they would feel the spirit. So that was like the thinking, and we were like, yeah, if someone doesn't want it to sit in a silent room with two strangers, then it's because they're like doing spiritual avoidance. But really, it's just a lot of people don't like to sit in a quiet room with two strangers, let alone they just don't like to sit in a quiet room. And if it's your own house and you're having people over and you choose to have music on, your guests should not turn the music off while you're gone. That's so weird. Ugh, so weird. Also, I already said it, but it was embarrassing to read that I actually made a list of why she should be LDS, and I don't remember saying it, but I'm sure I did actually say, like, you should change who you are and you should be LDS, like, I just said it. If you don't know what eternigators is, this is like a missionary term. So I think so normally when we were teaching people, we called them investigators. They might have changed that to like calling people you're teaching friends now, which almost feels more culty because you're trying to hide the fact that they're like being taught, that they're like not part of the group. Anyway, investigators, if it took someone a long time to join, like, that would be considered like if someone was meeting with the missionaries for more than, 6 months, and there'd start to be like, okay, you really like need to just commit to get baptized. You're not really serious about this, are you? And I didn't realize that it's actually healthy to take a period of time to make a decision like this about really anything, but especially joining a group like this. It's healthy to take a time. It's healthy to take a couple of years even. And when that happened as missionaries, if there was someone who had been meeting with missionaries for years, like sometimes we just write them off and be like, yeah, they're not ever going to join. Like, we're just not even going to talk to them. When in reality, now I think that should be like required. Like, you should not be able to join this group that quickly, as quickly as we are trying to get people to join. And then lastly, the logic I had of like, I think Gwen is going to join, and I think she's just a maximizer, and she feels like she needs to know everything first before she can join. And now I'm like, well, I don't know if that's true. Like, I think she was actually just trying to be friendly to these two young missionaries who keep bothering her, you know? She was like, yeah, why not? I'll talk to you. I'll be friendly. I'll be a neighbor, that kind of thing. But if she really was interested and she wanted to know everything, that's definitely her prerogative. And it's strange that I'm, like, seeing that as someone being excessive, right? And I was like, yeah, we just need to get her to feel the Spirit. We just need to get her to feel really good. And then even if she doesn't know, like, anything, or if she just knows the bare basics, that's fine, because her good feelings are enough. So, yeah, right there, I kind of wrote down the whole playbook without really realizing. So, anyway, let's keep going. Wednesday, March 4th, 2015, Mission Day 145. It's been a good day. I got letters from home yesterday, and then today, Sister Johnson got a tiny package from her dad that included 2 baggies of gummy bears. The yellow ones are the only weird ones. They taste like pine sol. We saw Lynn again today. It's a good thing Kyle's lesson was canceled afterward, because she talked for an extra hour. It's been too long since we've seen her, I guess. Too much stressful stuff. Also, we got to visit John and Sarah Crawford today. They might be member and non-member couple in Ellendale, not sure. They fed us spaghetti for dinner, and this is what they did for the sauce. Ground beef, Prego sauce, chunky tomatoes, and canned mandarin oranges. Cool, huh? We used Jenga to share the restoration, and it was pretty fun. Rocco and Eddie were pretty distracted playing with the blocks, though. Alright, so, interesting day. Looks like we ate the candy that we got. Good for us. And some of them taste like cleaning products, so less good for us. I already talked about how we would use the Jenga blocks to teach the restoration, but it is true that it was a great hit, especially for people who had little toddlers and, you know, super young kids that they wanted to play with the blocks too. But might be a little bit distracting for the lesson you're trying to do. We probably tried to, you know, keep them away from the blocks till we were done with that part of the lesson. But it's interesting. I've noticed a theme. I write about the food in my mission a lot, and I think some of it is like this hyper awareness that I was getting of, like, how much healthy food am I eating, and, you know, like, just getting a little bit more too aware and, like, paying attention to that. But I think also some of it was actually, like, trying to prepare for being, like, married and being a homemaker, and being like, it'll be good to have all these ideas of different things from my mission to cook later when I'm, you know, a busy mom with all my piles of little babies and children and teenagers, and I want them to have connections to my mission. So I will write down food that I cook on my mission, and then when I'm a mom and raising my kids, they will eat the food that I ate on my mission. Like, super in the future meal planning, you know? I kind of think that's what's going on, which is certainly not what's happening now, but it was a valiant attempt, for sure. Thursday, March 5th, 2015, Mission Day 146. Phew. So we finally met with Brother Congar, and he still wants to be baptized this Sunday, so we're getting everything set in motion. We were originally supposed to have dinner and a lesson with Ruby this evening, but she had to cancel because of bronchitis, and we ended up using that time for organization, so it worked out super well. Too bad Ruby was sick, though. Also, remember last Thursday when the weird guy came to Goodwill? I didn't write about it, so no, I don't remember. Well, when we went today, the girls asked us if he had said anything rude. We let them know it was all okay, but they let us know that they know we're two great girls, and they won't have anyone bashing on us, so we're to let them know if that ever happens. Yay, they see missionaries as good people, and they're looking out for us. Progress! Smiley face. Okay, just a couple things from this day. Big news, Brother Congar is on date to be baptized in just a few days, so that's very exciting for Sister Finlinson. And sadly, Ruby had to cancel the dinner she planned, but we used that time for planning or whatever and to get ready for the baptism. There was this, there's always this, always looking for the bright side in everything and, trying to see God's hand in things, and it was my missionary brain was I guess God knew that when we signed up for dinner with Ruby that she would actually be sick, but it would be okay because that we would need this time to plan and get everything ready for the baptism. And now thinking that way feels kind of messed up, as though God is trying to make it happen that Ruby gets sick or something. I don't know. It feels a little weird to me now, that way of thinking. So, yeah. And then lastly, at the the donation thrift store place we would volunteer at, it's weird that I said the girls because it was adult women who was it was their full-time job that they worked there, so weird that I called them the girls. But just moving past that, I guess someone came in and gave us a hard time about being missionaries, maybe. And I think I totally didn't appreciate that situation really, or I don't know. I was just putting it through the lens of being a good missionary, because that's what it always was. So it was really cool that these people were standing up for us, and they were we don't want people to be rude to you, so come let us know if something happens, class worker solidarity, it can suck to be working at a in the back room of a thrift store if you've ever, it's not terrible, but it's not the most fun, glamorous stuff, right? And it was nice that they were looking out for us, right? And I think that speaks more to their goodness as good people and good women looking out for other women. In the workplace, knowing that it could be scary when someone kind of shows up and is rude or aggressive. But of course the way that I looked at it was, it's not that they are just good people and they want to protect people who are volunteering or working with them, or that they think that we are two individually good people. Is no, I am a representative and I am the conglomerate of missionary, and if they're standing up for the missionaries, then they love all missionaries, and this will help them want to join the church. There's always a motive. Always a motive. Friday, March 6, 2015, Mission Day 147. I've experienced a lot of good today. We had an awesome ZTM, Zone Training Meeting, on gratitude, dedicated service, and using the Easter initiative. I'm on an exchange with Sister Westrick, who I add upon rereading is one of the only Black missionaries I met on my mission, and Brother Congar had his interview. Okay, that's all I wrote that day, and half of that was something I wrote in after the fact. I fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, I don't know if you like hearing all my notes from zone meetings, but I didn't put all my notes in my journal for this one. There was another, if you remember, like the He is the Gift Christmas initiative with like cards to pass out and a video and stuff. They did it again for Easter, so we got all ready for that. It's very exciting. And then I was on exchanges. I think I was up in Grand Forks. Is that what I call this place? It wasn't actually Grand Forks, but, I think that's the name we're going for the town that our zone stuff was in. Anyway, I was not in Scranton. I was on exchanges, so Sister Johnson was back in Scranton with the sister training leader, and I was with Sister Westrick in Grand Forks. So, yeah, just yesterday, Thursday, Brother Congar, sorry, I'm playing with a hair clip. Hopefully that's not an annoying sound. Just yesterday, Brother Congar committed to baptism on, that coming Sunday. So then this is Friday, and we were like gone, but we still got it set up for him to have his baptismal interview. I hope we practiced with him before, but I don't know if we did. But at least, like, if he ever was, involved with an abortion, it would be a little bit less awkward for him because he just would have been, like, paying for it, maybe. Anyway, I hope it was just fine. I don't know now. I guess there's really no way to know. And yeah, I guess Sister Westrick, just so that you can kind of keep track of the demographics of the missionaries. There were a couple, like, Hispanic or, like, Polynesian, Hawaiian, ethnicity people on my mission, and I think Sister Westrick, there might be someone else I read going forward who is also Black, but she might have been the only Black missionary. So I'm curious what that experience was like for her. But I'll probably leave her anonymity and not bug her about it, because I'm probably not the best person to do that. But I hope she had a good experience on her mission. And then I didn't write things down on Saturday, so I wrote on Sunday, and I tried to write on Sunday what happened both the days, but I didn't quite manage, so I'll let you see why I got kind of distracted. So let's find out. Sunday, March 8th, 2015, Mission Day 149. I normally try not to miss a day, but yesterday I couldn't even bring myself to write on a sticky note. I figure I can communicate it pretty well a day later. So I had a nice exchange with Sister Westrick. She was sick, possibly coming down with strep, so we took it pretty slow. I really enjoyed getting to know her. She grew up in Mississippi, and despite being subject to a lot of racial hatred, she's very dignified, calm, personable daughter of God. Her prayers are so sincere. I really felt like we were communicating with Heavenly Father. She also taught me how to play Book of Mormon baseball. All of the good things about yesterday were forgotten for a while, however, when I followed up with Sister Kiona at the end of the exchange. We sat down in the Relief Society room. She put her arm around my chair, asked how I was doing, and said, "Sister Finlinson, how do you feel about training next transfer?" I wanted to laugh, to do something to refute this possibility. me train next transfer? Not until that moment have I ever understood what people mean when they say they don't feel prepared for a calling. I thought about it, and I let her know that I don't feel that my teaching skills are ready for that. Then she challenged me to work on it, to get help from Sister Johnson, because I can expect to train. If not this transfer, then the next. That's been in either the back or the front of my mind since then. I'm trying to formulate a plan to prepare myself. At least I'm at the point now where I'm past the initial shock, fear, disbelief, and I can actually try to do something. I can't help but wonder, why am I training? There are so many sisters in our mission, and only 1 or 2 sisters come in every other transfer. Why does Heavenly Father want to give me this responsibility? And how can I be ready for it? I did find comfort in our lesson in Gospel Principles today. We studied the life of Christ, and it really stood out to me at age 12, Jesus Christ understood his role and responsibility well enough that he went on his own to teach at the temple. How overwhelming it must have been for him at 12 years of age to begin to recognize his calling. Yet he didn't shrink in fear, but rose to the responsibility, put in his effort, and became qualified to do the work. So, I can do this. This has been so distracting to me that I've barely been able to focus on Brother Congar, who, by the way, was baptized today. I'm a little disappointed in myself for not being as in tune with the Spirit. It could have been a very uplifting experience. I guess my brain has begun to cut ties with Scranton, so leaving won't be as hard. I'm going to try not to do that anymore. So that's what I wrote. Brother Congar had his baptism, and I didn't write about it at all because I was so stressed about this. I'm sure if I looked at pictures, it would help me remember it more. But I don't remember really any of the baptisms of my investigators very well. Probably partially because I wasn't doing the actual physical baptism, so there was just less, the more you're physically involved something, I think the easier it is to form a long-term memory, whereas if I'm just kind of standing there watching, it's just less of an obvious reason for your brain to remember, right? And I guess I'll mention just that I wrote down, I guess Sister Westrick did, like we talked, and she did probably offer up because I would have been too, nervous to ask her about it. She brought up herself, the experience of being a Black woman in at least the South. I don't know if she really talked about how that was related to being a member at all. I don't remember. I guess my takeaway, my writing of her character feels a little bit double-edged, because on the one hand, I can see why it's good for me to say oh yeah, she's a great person, she's dignified, calm, personable, a good daughter of God. That's kind of the compliment I wanted to give everyone who was a missionary I respected in my journal. But the other edge, the double-edged part is writing that down in combination with her experience of racism. Almost I might be wrong here, but it feels a bit like a microaggression, maybe. It's I'm expecting her to be the quote-unquote stereotypical angry Black woman because she has a reason to be angry, right? Based on the stuff she told me, but she just stayed very sweet and calm, and I wrote dignified. Um, and I guess what I want to say about this is, like, however you want to show up in the world, if you experience, like, systemic, like, injustice and, like, cruelty from the world and the systems of the world around you, you know, like, however you show up is, like, okay. And it's too bad that when I was on a missionary, I couldn't really make space for, like if she had been more, like, angry or whatever, which is, like, a perfectly valid reaction to have to, like, talking about this stuff, I don't think I would have been able to respect her as much, if she had been not the, like, super calm, sweet Mormon woman that is required. And I think that's just, I mean, and it's not just that she was expected to be very calm and polite because she was a black woman. It's also just part of the church culture, right? Of, like, you gotta be happy and calm and temple voice and sweet, right? That's like a double thing going on, but that's a thing I noticed. So that's, yeah, I don't really have a takeaway necessarily. I had to say the thing that I noticed. And then I will just talk a little bit about how I was so caught off guard and so overwhelmed by the thought of training, the responsibility. You know, I still feel at this point on my mission just so like I'm not doing well. I feel like compared to other people, I'm just not getting things fast enough, and I'm not learning the stuff I need to learn, and I'm not teaching well, and I forget things, you know. I just didn't feel like I was done getting trained myself, let alone, like, able to train someone else. And I was really, I think I could sort of see, like, the compliment in this of, like, oh wow, like, God / my mission president thinks I'm doing so well that, like, I could be trusted with training another missionary. And it was, like, seen as a really big deal because the way that you're trained is, like, the way that you're going to act the rest of your mission. It's, like, you know, kind of the lore we had for each other. And so I could see that there was, like, some, like, a bit of, you know, the possibility of, like, an ego boost in that maybe, but mostly I was just panicked about it. I was like, yeah, I think I can do it because Jesus did it, but I still was so dysregulated and overwhelmed and upset that I couldn't even write my journal on Saturday. And then on Sunday, I couldn't even pay attention to the Brother Congar's baptism, our golden favorite, perfect investigator. And I was just so distraught thinking about, like, training and leaving and being in charge of someone's missionary's salvation. Oh no. And it is true that it was, you know, there were a lot of sisters in our mission, and it was only every other transfer that we would have a few people come in. Like, so there were a lot of people who never even trained, and I was like, why am I being asked to train already? Like, this is irregular. So I guess I was doing better than I thought I was, or I was making it look like I was doing better, or I don't know, I was playing the game right, you know, I was saying the things that I needed to say for my mission president to think that I was good at it, right? But yeah, definitely a big, like self-confidence, self-esteem thing going on here, where anytime I'm learning anything, it's like I really am just giving credit to God, and I'm constantly getting after myself for not being good at things. So no matter how much I grow as a person, the only thing that is consistent is that I'm constantly telling myself I'm not enough. So it's just like slow degradation over time of my sense of self, my sense of personal power and capability. So, yeah, I wrote down that I was disappointed in myself, but now I'm sad for myself, for Sister Finlinson. Yeah. Retrospective compassion. And that's my 23rd week as a Mormon sister missionary. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast if you want to continue following my story. Ratings and reviews are appreciated, and please share this with anyone you think would be interested. I hope you have a great week, and if you want my advice, just remember that you can love others best when you love yourself first. Bye!